In this video, we'll follow some of the most notorious serial killers on death row in their final 24 hours before execution. We'll see what they saw, hear what they said, and imagine what they felt when justice finally found its footing. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and let's get started. Gary Gilmore. Gary Gilmore wasn't supposed to be famous. He was just another career criminal, in and out of prison since age 14 for robbery, assault, armed robbery. But on July 19, 1976, just months after being paroled from a 12-year sentence, he walked into a gas station in Orem, Utah, and shot 26-year-old Max Jensen twice in the head. The next night, he murdered Benny Bushnell, a 25-year-old motel manager in Provo, the same way. Both men had complied with his demands, given him the money. He killed them anyway, execution style, for no reason anyone could understand. What made Gilmore infamous wasn't just the murders, it was what came next. After being sentenced to death, he refused all appeals. He demanded the state of Utah kill him. He would become the first person executed in America after the Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty in 1976, ending a decade-long moratorium. He chose death by firing squad. January 15, 1977. Evening. Gary Gilmore has 12 hours to live. The prison mess hall has been transformed into something between a wake and a party. Gilmore sits at the center, surrounded by family and close friends. His Uncle Vern has smuggled in whiskey, several small bottles hidden in coat pockets. Gilmore downs glass after glass, mixing the alcohol with the tranquilizers he's been hoarding. The combination should knock him out, but instead he seems energized, almost euphoric. The phone on the wall rings. A guard answers, then hands it to Gilmore with a strange expression. It's Johnny Cash. The man in black is calling from Nashville. He's heard about Gilmore's situation, wants to offer some comfort. Through the crackling connection, Cash begins to sing. Gilmore grins, the first genuine smile anyone's seen from him in weeks, and starts singing along. For a moment, everyone forgets why they're here. 11:30 p.m. The party atmosphere shatters. Word arrives that U.S. District Judge Willis Ritter has issued a last-minute stay of execution. The room erupts in confusion. Lawyers scramble to understand what this means. Family members don't know whether to celebrate or mourn. Gilmore slams his fist on the table. "No more delays," he shouts. "I don't want this. I want it over." He storms back to his cell, where he records a final message for Nicole Barrett, his girlfriend who's confined in a psychiatric hospital after attempting suicide to join him in death. His voice on the tape is slurred but determined. "Baby, I love you. I'll see you on the other side. Don't let them stop this." Midnight passes. Gilmore lies on his narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling. He's ready to die at dawn. The question is whether the courts will let him. January 16, 1977, 5 a.m. Guards wake Gilmore, though he hasn't slept. He showers methodically, shaves carefully, making sure his appearance is perfect. They offer him fresh prison clothes. He insists on choosing his own outfit from what's available. White shirt, dark pants. He wants to look good for this. His last meal arrives: hamburger, hard-boiled eggs, baked potato, coffee. The hunger strike he staged weeks ago has destroyed his appetite, but he forces himself to eat. Every bite is an act of will. He drinks 3 cups of black coffee, needing the caffeine to stay alert. He wants to be fully conscious for what's coming. 7:30 a.m. A guard rushes in with news. The U.S. Supreme Court has overturned Judge Ritter's stay. The execution is back on. It will happen in 30 minutes. Gilmore simply nods. Good, let's get this done. He's allowed one phone call. He tries Nicole again, but the hospital won't put her through. He hangs up without leaving a message. What could he say anyway? 7:53 a.m. They load him into a prison van for the half-mile ride to the execution site, an abandoned cannery behind Utah State Prison that's been hastily converted into a death house. It's freezing cold, below zero, and Gilmore's breath fogs in the air. Through the van's windows, he can see the first light of dawn breaking over the Wasatch Mountains. The van stops. This is it. 8 a.m. The execution chamber is stark, industrial. A wooden chair sits against one wall, sandbags stacked behind it to catch the bullets. 5 rifles poke through slots in a canvas barrier 20 feet away. Behind that barrier stand 5 volunteer marksmen, local police officers who've agreed to carry out the sentence. Gilmore's witnesses are here. His Uncle Vern, looking haggard, his attorneys Bob Moody and Dennis Boaz, and Larry Schiller, the journalist and film producer who bought the rights to Gilmore's story. No journalists are allowed. Gilmore specifically requested this. Nicole isn't here. She's still hospitalized, sedated, prevented from joining him even in this. They strap Gilmore into the chair. He asks if he can stand and face the rifles like a man. Request denied. He asks to die without a hood. Also denied. The white hood is placed loosely over his head. Father Thomas Mearsman, the Catholic chaplain, approaches to give last rites. Gilmore isn't Catholic, but he accepts the blessing. Dominus vobiscum, the priest says. The Lord be with you. Et cum spiritu tuo, Gilmore responds in perfect Latin, surprising everyone. And with your spirit. The prison doctor pins a white cloth target directly over Gilmore's heart. It's the size of a silver dollar. The doctor's hands are shaking. 8:05 a.m. Warden Sam Smith steps forward, his voice echoing in the cold space as he reads the death warrant. The formal language seems absurd in this abandoned cannery, but protocol must be followed. "Do you have any last words?" the warden asks. Gilmore's response is instant, almost cheerful. "Let's do it." 3 words that will become legend. No profound statement, no plea for forgiveness, no declaration of innocence. Just let's do it, like he's starting a pickup basketball game. 8:07 a.m. Behind the canvas barrier, 5 marksmen raise their Winchester Model 94 rifles. 4 rifles contain live .30-30 rounds. One holds a blank, so no one will know who fired the killing shots. They've been told to aim for the heart. The countdown is silent. Someone behind the barrier says, "Ready, aim." The volley is deafening in the enclosed space. 4 bullets tear through the white target, through Gilmore's heart. His body jolts violently backward, held in place only by the straps. His head twists to one side. His fingers clench and release. Blood spreads across the white shirt. For several seconds there's movement, involuntary muscle spasms. Then stillness. The doctor approaches, stethoscope in hand. He listens for a heartbeat, listens again. At 8:07 a.m., 2 minutes after his famous last words, Gary Mark Gilmore is pronounced dead. He was 36 years old. Blood pools beneath the chair, seeping into the concrete floor. The marksmen have already left through a back door, their identities protected. They'll never have to know which of them fired the fatal shots. Within hours, following Gilmore's last request, his corneas are harvested and transplanted to 2 patients, restoring their sight. He wanted some part of him to be useful, to make up in some small way for the lives he took. His body is cremated, the ashes scattered in Spanish Fork Canyon, a place he loved from his youth. There will be no grave, no marker, just as he wanted. Years later, advertising executive Dan Whedon will remember Gilmore's last words while working on a campaign for Nike. "Let's do it" becomes "just do it," one of the most successful slogans in advertising history. Gilmore's final statement, meant to hasten his death, ironically becomes a call to life, to action, to achievement. But on this frozen January morning in 1977, in an abandoned cannery in Utah, Gary Gilmore simply got what he wanted: a quick death on his own terms. He refused to beg for his life, refused to play the victim, refused to let lawyers save him. He faced the rifles and told them to get on with it. The first execution in America in nearly a decade was over in less than 2 minutes. The machinery of death, dormant for so long, had awakened, and it would never sleep again. Ted Bundy. Theodore Robert. Bundy was the nightmare that haunted America through the 1970s. Between 1974 and 1978, this charismatic law student turned into one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history, leaving a trail of at least 30 dead young women across 7 states. He would approach his victims in public places, feigning injury with a fake cast or sling, asking for help carrying books to his Volkswagen Beetle. Once they were close enough, he would strike. Some nights he would break into sorority houses and apartment buildings, bludgeoning women as they slept in their own beds. His killing spree finally ended on February 15, 1978, when police arrested him in Florida for driving a stolen vehicle. Just weeks earlier, he had broken into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University, attacking 4 women and killing 2 in a frenzied assault. Then he had taken the life of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, his youngest known victim. January 23, 1989, 7:06 a.m. Ted Bundy's life will end in exactly 24 hours. The sun hasn't fully risen over Florida State Prison, but hundreds have already gathered outside the gates. They've been camping in the fields overnight, some driving from states away to witness history. The atmosphere feels more like a tailgate party than an execution vigil. Vendors sell T-shirts reading "Burn Bundy" and "Ted will fry." Someone's grilling Bundy burgers, while others wave banners declaring, "Watch Ted fry, see Ted die." Inside his cell, Bundy is a shadow of the confident killer who once defended himself in court. He's weak, exhausted from nights without sleep. When breakfast arrives, standard prison fare, he can barely look at it. His hands shake as he pushes the tray away. For the first time in years, the man who showed no mercy to his victims is crying, terrified of Old Sparky, Florida's infamous electric chair waiting just down the hall. 22 hours before execution, Pastor Fred Lawrence enters the cell carrying a worn Bible. Bundy admits he was only loosely Methodist growing up, that religion never meant much to him until now. As they talk, Bundy's mind drifts to his childhood, the lies, the violence, the confusion. His mother had pretended to be his sister for years. His grandfather was violent, his grandmother deeply depressed. He tells the pastor about something that happened when he was just 3 years old. He had snuck into his aunt's room while she slept, carefully placing kitchen knives under her blanket, pointing upward. When she woke and felt the blades against her body, she screamed. Little Ted just stood there grinning. Even then, something was wrong. 19 hours before execution. Outside, the crowd has swelled to over 1,000. The carnival atmosphere intensifies as the sun climbs higher. People are taking photos with their "Roast in Peace Ted Bundy" signs. A group of college students, the same age as many of Bundy's victims, are chanting and cheering. Only a small group of death penalty protesters stand quietly to one side, holding candles. 16 hours before execution. Dr. James Dobson, the Christian psychologist, arrives for what will become one of the most controversial final interviews in execution history. Bundy, desperate to delay his fate, begins talking. He blames pornography for twisting his mind, violent media for fueling his fantasies. He admits to the necrophilia, to keeping trophies from his victims, to returning to crime scenes to be with the bodies. "I don't want to die," he tells Dobson, his voice breaking. "I don't want to die." Suddenly, the lights flicker and go out. The guards are testing the electric chair. The sound of the massive generator kicking on echoes through the death row wing. Bundy goes pale. 11 hours before execution. Detective Bob Keppel sits across from Bundy as the killer provides more details about burial sites: Taylor Mountain, Lake Sammamish, Evergreen State College. Bundy's trying to barter information for time, hinting at victims no one knows about. "There are more," he says, crying now. "There are so many more." Keppel will later say he believes Bundy killed over 100 women, but time is running out, and Bundy still won't give complete answers. Even facing death, he needs to maintain some control. 5 hours before execution. Bundy makes his final phone calls. When he reaches his mother, Louise, his voice cracks. "Mom, I'm sorry. The Ted you knew, the son you raised, he always existed, he was real. You'll always be my precious son," she tells him through tears. He tries calling Carol Ann Boone, the woman he married during his trial, the mother of his daughter. The phone rings and rings. She doesn't answer. She's already begun erasing him from her life. 2 hours before execution. The final meal arrives: steak cooked medium rare, eggs over easy, hash browns, toast with butter and jelly, milk, coffee, and orange juice. Bundy doesn't touch any of it. His stomach is in knots. Attorney Polly Nelson makes her final visit. As she prepares to leave, something unexpected happens. She embraces him. Later, she'll describe feeling like she was hugging a black hole, something that consumed everything good that came near it. Bundy rests his head in her hands like a child. 1 hour before execution. Pastor Lawrence returns for communion. As he explains step by step what will happen in the execution chamber, how they'll shave his head and leg, how the electrodes will be attached, how the hood will drop over his face, Bundy nearly collapses. "Will it hurt?" he asks. "No," the pastor lies. "It will be quick." Bundy grabs the pastor's hand and squeezes tighter than Lawrence has ever felt anyone grip before. He won't let go. January 24th, 1989, 7:06 a.m. Guards arrive at Bundy's cell. It's time. They walk him down the Green Mile, past the cells of other condemned men who watch in silence. The execution chamber door opens, revealing Old Sparky, a 3-legged oak chair built in 1923, stained dark from years of use. 42 witnesses are already seated behind the glass. Journalists, police officers who worked his case, and family members of victims. Bundy enters wearing a pale blue shirt and dark blue slacks. His head and right leg have been shaved. He's strapped into the chair with thick leather restraints. A wet sponge is placed on his head before the metal skull cap is secured. Another electrode is attached to his leg. The warden asks if he has any last words. Bundy looks toward the witness room and speaks calmly. "Jim and Fred, I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." 7:16 a.m. The executioner throws the switch. 2,000 volts surge through Bundy's body. His hands clench into fists. His body strains against the straps. Smoke rises from the electrode on his leg. After 2 minutes, the doctor checks for a pulse. Theodore Robert Bundy is dead. Outside, the crowd erupts. Fireworks explode in the morning sky. People are dancing, passing out donuts, spraying champagne. After years of terror, Ted Bundy's reign is finally over. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos never stood a chance at a normal life. Abandoned by her mother, abused by her grandfather, pregnant at 14 from rape, she lived on the streets surviving through prostitution. Between 1989 and 1990, she shot and killed 7 men along Florida's highways. She claimed it was self-defense, that they had tried to assault her. The jury didn't believe her. She was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to death, becoming America's most notorious female serial killer. October 8, 2002, mourning Aileen Wuornos has 24 hours left to live. The morning sun filters through the bars of her cell at Broward Correctional Institution. For once, Wuornos is calm. The woman who spent years raging against guards, claiming the prison was trying to poison her food, who insisted she was being controlled by sonic waves. Today, she's different. Quiet. Almost peaceful. She sits at her small metal desk, writing notes with a stubby pencil. "I'm ready to meet God," she writes. "Jesus is my rock." The guards, watching her exchange glances. They've never seen her like this. When breakfast arrives, she waves it away. She's declined to request a special last meal. Her only request, a cup of black coffee. She sips it slowly, staring at nothing. The phone in the guard station rings. Her childhood friend Don Botkins is on the line, one of the few people who never abandoned her. Wuornos takes the receiver. "Don, listen to me," she says, her voice steady. "Don't let them make me out to be nuts. I'm sane. I know what I did. But I'm sailing with the rock now. Jesus is with me." She spends the rest of the day in her cell, refusing visitors, refusing the chaplain. She doesn't want to talk to anyone. She's ready. October 9th, 2002, 6 a.m. Guards arrive at her cell. It's time for final preparations. They offer her a towel and washcloth. She accepts without resistance, another surprise for guards used to her violent outbursts. She washes her face slowly, methodically, as if performing a ritual. Then she changes into the clean white prison garment laid out for her. "You want breakfast?" a guard asks. She shakes her head. Just another cup of black coffee. She drinks it standing up, looking out her cell window at the Florida sky one last time. 7 a.m. They move her to a private room near the death chamber. This is where condemned prisoners spend their final hour, praying, writing last letters, meeting with chaplains. Wuornos requests that Christian gospel hymns be played over the prison speaker system. The haunting melodies echo through the corridors. A guard checks on her. She's swaying slightly to the music, eyes closed. "You okay, Wuornos?" She opens her eyes and actually smiles. "I'm okay. God is going to be there. Jesus Christ is going to be there, all the angels and everything." The guard offers her the phone for a final call. She waves it away. There's no one left to call. 8:30 a.m. 4 correctional officers arrive to escort her. Prison policy forbids shackling during this final walk. They call it the last dignity. Wuornos stands and walks out of the cell with her head up, steady steps, no hesitation. The guards are struck by her composure. This isn't the wild-eyed woman who screamed about conspiracies. This is someone who has made peace with her fate. The walk to the death chamber is 57 steps. She counts each one. Through the reinforced windows, she can see protesters outside. Some holding signs calling her a monster, others proclaiming that only God can judge. She doesn't look at them. 9 a.m. The death chamber is small, clinical, painted institutional beige. The gurney waits in the center like an altar. Wuornos lies down without being asked. The guards strap her arms and legs. A nurse inserts IV lines into both arms, one as backup in case the first fails. Wuornos doesn't flinch. Through the glass window, she can see the witnesses. 2 reporters scribbling notes, 2 family members of her victims staring with cold eyes, 2 spiritual advisors praying silently. She turns her head slightly toward them but looks at no one in particular. Her gaze seems focused on something beyond the room. 9:38 a.m. The warden steps forward. "Do you have any last words?" Wuornos turns her head toward the microphone. Her final statement is bizarre, almost incomprehensible, but delivered with complete conviction. "Yes, I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back." The witnesses exchange confused glances. Even in her final moments, Aileen Wuornos remains an enigma. 9:39 a.m. The executioner begins the sequence. First, sodium pentothal flows through the IV, a massive dose of sedative. Wuornos's eyes flutter and close within seconds. Then, pancuronium bromide, paralyzing her lungs. Finally, potassium chloride to stop her heart. 9:47 a.m. The doctor checks for a pulse, checks again and nods to the warden. Time of death, 9:47 a.m. Aileen Wuornos, the woman who never knew love, who lived in violence and died in violence, is gone. Her body will be cremated, her ashes scattered beneath a tree in Michigan by Don Botkins, the only friend who remembered the damaged little girl she once was. Timothy McVeigh. On April 19, 1995, Timothy McVeigh parked a yellow Ryder truck loaded with 5,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate and racing fuel outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. At 9:02 a.m., the bomb detonated, tearing the face off the 9-story building. 168 people died that morning, including 19 children in the building's daycare center. More than 680 were injured. It was the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in American history. McVeigh, a Gulf War veteran with anti-government views, had planned the bombing as revenge for the federal siege at Waco, Texas, exactly 2 years earlier. He saw himself as a patriot, a soldier in a war against tyranny. The government saw him as a mass murderer. Just 90 minutes after the bombing, he was pulled over for driving without a license plate, arrested for carrying an unlicensed firearm, and soon connected to the bombing through the VIN number of the destroyed truck's axle. June 10, 2001, 7:30 a.m. Timothy McVeigh has 24 hours left to live. The morning arrives gray and humid at USP Terre Haute, Indiana. McVeigh has been in the federal death house for 4 days now, moved from death row to this final holding cell, 8 by 12 feet of concrete and steel. He's been awake since before dawn, lying on his narrow steel bed, staring at the ceiling. When breakfast arrives, scrambled eggs, toast, oatmeal, fruit, and milk, he eats methodically, showing no anxiety. The guards watching through the window note his composure. After 6 years of appeals, delays, and even a last-minute stay of execution just weeks ago, McVeigh is ready. He wants this over. 8:30 a.m. After his shower, McVeigh returns to his cell and picks up his copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. He's underlined certain passages about death, about facing one's fate with dignity. On his small metal table sits a copy of the Declaration of Independence. These are the texts he's chosen for his final days: philosophy and revolution. 10 a.m. His attorneys, Rob Nye and Nathan Chambers, arrive for their final meeting. There are no more appeals to file, no more legal maneuvers. McVeigh has forbidden them from trying. He viewed his execution as the final act of his mission, Nye will later recall. He wanted to be a martyr. They discuss practical matters, what will happen to his belongings, his writings. McVeigh is calm, almost businesslike. He shakes their hands when they leave. "Thank you for everything," he tells them. They know they'll never see him again. 2 p.m. Father Charles Smith arrives. McVeigh isn't religious. He's described himself as agnostic, but he accepts the visit. They pray briefly. The priest will later describe McVeigh as detached, almost serene, as if he's already somewhere else in his mind. 5 p.m. Outside the prison, the media circus has reached fever pitch. Hundreds of reporters, satellite trucks stretching for blocks. Inside the prison, 10 witnesses selected from victims' families are preparing themselves. In Oklahoma City, 232 more family members gather in an auditorium to watch via closed-circuit television. An unprecedented arrangement for an unprecedented crime. McVeigh knows they're all waiting. He knows many want him to suffer. He won't give them that satisfaction. 6 p.m., dinner arrives, but McVeigh has already made his request for his last meal, 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream. Nothing else. No steak, no elaborate feast. Just ice cream, which he eats slowly, savoring each spoonful. When offered cigarettes or alcohol, special privileges for the condemned, he declines. 10 p.m., the guards expect McVeigh to be awake all night, wrestling with fear, perhaps breaking down as so many do in their final hours. Instead, he lies down and actually sleeps. The guards exchange glances. How can he sleep knowing what morning brings? June 11, 2001, 4 a.m. The Death Watch guards enter his cell. McVeigh is already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed. He showers one final time, then dresses in the khaki prison uniform laid out for him. His movements are precise, military. Even now, he carries himself like a soldier. 6 a.m., the execution team assembles. The chemicals are prepared, 3 syringes that will deliver death in sequence. Outside, protesters hold candles and sing hymns. Others hold signs. Justice for 168. The sun is just beginning to rise over Indiana. 6:45 a.m. McVeigh is escorted from his cell for the last walk. It's less than 30 yards to the execution chamber, but it might as well be miles. His legs don't shake, his head doesn't bow. Guards will later say they've never seen a condemned man walk to his death with such composure. 6:55 a.m. The execution chamber is small, clinical, dominated by the gurney in its center. McVeigh lies down without being asked. As they strap down his arms and legs, he looks through the window at the witnesses. Some are crying. Others stare with cold fury. Paul Howell, whose 27-year-old daughter Karen was killed in the bombing, watches McVeigh's every movement. The IV lines go in smoothly, 1 in each arm. McVeigh doesn't flinch. 7 a.m. The warden asks if he has any last words. McVeigh shakes his head. He's already given them a written statement, not his own words, but lines from the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." It's a final act of defiance, no apology, no remorse, no acknowledgement of the 168 lives he stole. 7:06 a.m. The warden gives the signal. The first drug enters McVeigh's veins, sodium thiopental, a massive dose that will render him unconscious in seconds. His eyes flutter and close. Then pancuronium bromide to paralyze his diaphragm, stopping his breathing. Finally, potassium chloride races toward his heart. McVeigh's lips move slightly, as if forming words no one will ever hear. His chest rises once, twice, then stops. 7:14 a.m. The doctor checks for a pulse. checks again, nods to the warden. Time of death, 7:14 a.m. Timothy James McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, is dead at 33. In the witness room, some family members weep with relief. Others feel nothing but emptiness. His death doesn't bring back their loved ones. In Oklahoma City, watching on screens, Kathleen Treener, who lost her 4-year-old daughter Ashley in the bombing, says quietly, "He died too easy." Outside the prison, the crowds begin to disperse. There will be no grave for Timothy McVeigh, no marker. His body will be cremated, his ashes scattered in an undisclosed location. He wanted to be remembered as a patriot and martyr. Instead, he'll be remembered as the man who murdered 19 children and felt nothing. President Bush will later say, "The victims of the Oklahoma City bombing have been given justice." But for the families of the 168, justice feels hollow. McVeigh died peacefully, surrounded by protocol and procedure. Their loved ones died in terror and chaos, crushed under concrete, torn apart by the blast. Velma Barfield. Velma Barfield looked like everyone's grandmother, plump, gray-haired, soft-spoken. No one suspected the 52-year-old North Carolina woman was a serial poisoner who had killed 4 people, including her own mother, with arsenic. She claimed addiction to prescription drugs had clouded her judgment. The jury didn't buy it. In 1978, she was sentenced to death. November 1st, 1984, 6 a.m. Velma Barfield will be executed in 20 hours. The morning breaks gray and cold over Central Prison in Raleigh. Velma wakes coughing, her chronic condition made worse by the damp cell. A guard brings her hot water for instant coffee, a small kindness on her last day. "I really slept well," she tells him with a faint smile that surprises him. "Must have been because I barely slept the night before." She sits on her narrow bunk with her worn Bible, the pages soft from years of handling. She reads the same passages she's read 1,000 times before, her lips moving silently with the words. The guards note in their logs, "Appears very calm." 11:30 a.m. Pastor Hugh Hoyle arrives. Velma has been waiting months to see him again. She rises to greet him, but his expression stops her cold. He has news. "Velma, I just heard. Your last appeal was turned down." She sits back down slowly. "Well, that's what I figured." The pastor asks if there's anything she hasn't confessed, any burden she needs to release. "No, brother," she says quietly. "I'm ready to go." Noon. Lunch arrives, pea soup with crackers and fruit punch. She eats methodically while reading through a fresh stack of mail and telegrams. Letters from around the world, some calling her a monster, others offering prayers. She reads each one carefully. She tells the chaplains who visit, "Don't worry about me. Worry about the other 39 men on death row. They need you more than I do now." Afternoon, her brothers Jimmy and John arrive for their final visit, along with her cousin. They try to keep the conversation light, talking about family memories, avoiding what's coming. But when her children Ronnie and Pam arrive for their 2-hour reserved visit, the dam breaks. Pam collapses against her mother, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mama, please, there has to be something, some way." Velma holds her daughter, stroking her hair like she did when Pam was little. "Baby, it's going to be all right. You're going to be all right." She turns to Ronnie, always the responsible one. "Take care of Pam, handle the funeral arrangements, and Ronnie, remember the good times, before everything went wrong. Remember those." When the guards say time's up, Ronnie has to physically pull Pam away. "Don't look back," he whispers to his sister. "She doesn't want you to look back." Back in her cell, Alone now, Velma finally allows herself a moment of grief. Just one moment. Then she composes herself. 6:13 p.m. She orders cheese doodles and a Coke from the commissary, comfort food from better days. When they arrive late, she sets them aside and picks up 2 small white Bibles. She begins writing inscriptions in them for her children, her fingers turning orange from the cheese dust. The mundane mixed with the profound. November 2nd, 1984, 1:45 a.m. They dress her in pink pajamas. She specifically requested pink, the color she wore when her children were young. The indignity of the required diaper doesn't faze her. She's beyond embarrassment now. They tape a stethoscope and heart monitor to her chest, then strap her to the gurney. The 4 goes in smoothly. 2 a.m. The gurney rolls into the death chamber. Through the glass, she can see the witnesses, reporters, officials, some faces she recognizes. 3 syringes wait, 2 real, 1 dummy, so no one knows who actually delivers the fatal dose. The warden asks for her last words. Her voice is steady, maternal even. I want to say that I am sorry for all the hurt that I have caused. I know that everybody has gone through a lot of pain, all the families connected, and I am sorry. I want to thank everybody who has been supporting me all these 6 years. 2:15 a.m. The warden gives the signal. The chemicals flow. Velma Barfield closes her eyes as if going to sleep. At 2:15 a.m., she's pronounced dead, the first woman executed in the United States since 1962. Outside, crowds of demonstrators stand in the cold, some cheering that justice was served, others praying in protest. But inside the prison, there's only silence. Wesley Allen Dodd. Wesley Allen Dodd was every parent's worst nightmare. In 1989, he murdered 3 boys in Washington State, brothers William and Cole Neer, ages 10 and 11, whom he stabbed to death in a park, and 4-year-old Lee Isley, whom he abducted, molested, strangled, and then hung in a closet. He documented everything in a diary with chilling detail. When offered a choice of execution methods, Dodd chose hanging, the same way he had killed little Lee. January 4th, 1993, 4 p.m. Wesley Allen Dodd will be executed in 8 hours, the first U.S. hanging since 1965. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the Washington State Penitentiary. Dodd sits in his cell eating his final meal, nothing special requested, just the standard prison dinner of broiled salmon, scalloped potatoes, vegetables, and coleslaw. He eats methodically, showing no emotion. Outside, the prison is a circus. Floodlights illuminate the building like a stage. On one side, death penalty opponents hold candles and sing hymns. On the other, a crowd chants, "What the heck?" Stretch his neck. Someone sets off fireworks. The media presence is overwhelming. This is history in the making. Evening. Dodd meets with his attorney to draft his will. He's leaving his ashes to his sister, the only family member who still acknowledges him. She sent a letter. "You'll always be my brother. I believe if you'd received love as a child, none of this would have happened." His mother's letter is shorter. "I still love you. I always will." Dodd reads them both once, then sets them aside. He's made peace with what he is, what he's done. He told the court he had to die because if he ever escaped, he would kill again. He meant it. January 5th, 1993, 12 a.m. Just after midnight, guards arrive. The newly restored gallows wait, a wooden platform with a trap door, a noose hanging in the sodium lights. Washington State spent $18,000 bringing back hanging just for Dodd. He walks to the chamber without resistance. The witnesses are already there, seated in folding chairs like an audience at a macabre play. Dodd steps onto the platform. The executioner, his face hidden by a hood, waits with the noose. 12:05 a.m. They position him over the trap door. The manila hemp noose, waxed and oiled for a smooth release, is placed around his neck. It's been calculated precisely. A 7-foot 1-inch drop based on his height and weight, designed to break his neck instantly. The warden asks for last words. Dodd's voice is calm, almost peaceful. I was once asked if there was any way sex offenders could be stopped. I said no. I was wrong. There is hope. There is peace. I found both in the Lord Jesus Christ. Look to the Lord, and you will find peace. The trapdoor opens. Dodd falls. The witnesses say he doesn't move at all. Death is instantaneous. At 12:09 a.m., Wesley Allen Dodd is pronounced dead. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy lived a double life that defied comprehension. By day, he was a successful businessman who performed as Pogo the Clown at children's parties. By night, he was a predator who lured young men to his suburban Chicago home, where he tortured and strangled them. Between 1972 and 1978, he murdered at least 33 young men and boys, burying 26 in the crawlspace beneath his house. When that filled up, he threw bodies in the Des Plaines River. May 9, 1994. Afternoon. John Wayne. Gacy has less than 12 hours to live. The afternoon is surreal. Gacy is granted a private picnic on the prison grounds with his family, an oddly normal moment for a man about to die. They sit at a wooden table, eating sandwiches, trying to pretend this is just another visit, but everyone knows it's the last. Back in his cell, Gacy makes his final meal request, and it's infamous. A bucket of KFC original recipe chicken, 12 fried shrimp, French fries, a pound of fresh strawberries, and Diet Coke. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Gacy once managed 3 KFC restaurants. He eats alone, savoring each bite. Evening. As darkness falls, Gacy receives last rites from a Catholic priest. Outside Stateville Correctional Center, nearly 1,000 people have gathered. The crowd is split. Death penalty opponents singing hymns on one side, supporters on the other holding signs mocking his clown persona. No tears for the clown. Someone releases balloons into the night sky. Gacy remains calm in his cell, showing no remorse, no fear. After 14 years on death row, he's ready. He's maintained his innocence to the end, claiming he was framed, that the bodies were planted. No one believes him. May 10, 1994, 12 a.m. At the stroke of midnight, guards escort Gacy to the execution chamber. The walk feels endless. Media trucks are everywhere, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metal prayers. This is the event of the year. Inside the chamber, they strap him to the gurney. That's when things go wrong. As they insert the IV for the lethal injection, the line clogs. The executioner tries to push the sedative through, but it won't flow. Minutes tick by. The witnesses shift uncomfortably behind the glass. Gacy lies there, waiting, as technicians scramble to fix the problem. 12:18 a.m. Finally, 18 minutes after starting, they get the IV working. The 3-drug cocktail begins to flow. Witnesses say Gacy appears to doze off peacefully, which seems wrong somehow. That a man who caused so much pain should drift away so easily. 12:58 a.m. Nearly an hour after entering the chamber, John Wayne Gacy is pronounced dead. His final words, delivered earlier to a prison official, were characteristically defiant. "Kiss my ass." Outside, the crowd erupts in celebration. People cheer, car horns honk. For the families of 33 young men, it's not enough. It will never be enough. But at least the killer clown will never hurt anyone again. Stanley Tookie Williams. Stanley Tookie Williams co-founded the Crips gang in 1971 when he was just 17. By 1979, he had murdered 4 people in cold blood during robberies that netted less than $200 total. But during his 24 years on death row, Williams transformed. He wrote children's books warning against gang life, created peace protocols for gang truces, and earned multiple Nobel Peace Prize nominations. The question haunting his execution: can redemption outweigh murder? December 12, 2005, morning. Tookie. Williams will be executed in 16 hours. Morning arrives at San Quentin like any other day on death row. Williams eats the same breakfast as every other condemned man: lukewarm oatmeal and milk. No special treatment, even on your last day. After 24 years in this cell, he's calm. He's been ready for this for a long time. By mid-morning, he's writing. Always writing. Even now, hours from death, he's working on another book for kids, another warning about the gang life that destroyed him and so many others. 1 p.m. His legal team launches their final barrage of emergency petitions. Within hours, the California Supreme Court rejects them. Then the Ninth Circuit. Finally, the U.S. Supreme Court. All rejections. The system has spoken. Prosecutors release a statement. Williams is a fraud. He tells kids not to snitch to police while claiming innocence for murders where the evidence was overwhelming. 6 p.m. Williams is strip-searched and moved to the death cell, just steps from the execution chamber. They offer him a sedative. He refuses. "I want to face this with a clear mind," he says. He reads through stacks of letters from around the world. Children in Italy have drawn pictures for him. A class in Israel has sent prayers. He reads every one. Outside San Quentin, over 2,000 protesters have gathered. Jesse Jackson is there, Joan Baez is singing. They chant, "Tookie must live." But across the street, victims' rights groups hold photos of the 4 people Williams killed. 9:30 p.m. Governor Schwarzenegger releases his decision on clemency, no mercy. Without an apology and atonement for these senseless and brutal killings, there can be no redemption. Williams has never admitted guilt. He's maintained his innocence for 24 years. He won't confess now, not even to save his life. He declines the special last meal, barely touching his dinner tray. Just milk and water. December 13th, 2005, 12 a.m. Williams is escorted into the octagonal execution chamber that once held the gas chamber. Now it's been retrofitted for lethal injection. He lies on the gurney as they strap him down. A guard keeps a hand on his shoulder. Whether for comfort or control, no one can say. The nurse struggles to find a vein. For nearly 20 minutes she probes with the needle, accidentally drawing blood at one point. Williams looks toward his supporters and asks quietly, "You doing that right?" 12:21 a.m. Finally, the 4 is in. 5 grams of sodium pentothal enter his bloodstream, followed by pancuronium bromide, then potassium chloride. His supporter Barbara Bakenel cries out, "The state of California just killed an innocent man." 12:35 a.m. Stanley Tookie Williams is pronounced dead. He gave no last words. To the end, he maintained his silence about the murders, taking his truth, whatever it was, to the grave. John Allen Muhammad. For 3 weeks in October 2002, John Allen Muhammad and teenage accomplice Lee Boyd Malvo turned the Washington, D.C. area into a war zone. The Gulf War veteran used his military training to create mobile sniper positions, killing 10 random people at gas stations, parking lots, and shopping centers. The entire region lived in terror, zigzagging through parking lots, ducking behind cars while pumping gas. Muhammad never explained why. November 10th, 2009, early afternoon. John Allen Muhammad has 7 hours remaining. The afternoon visit is awkward, painful. Muhammad's estranged son, Lindbergh Williams, stands face to face with his father for the first time in years. For 3 solid minutes, they just stare at each other in silence. Father studying son, son studying father. "That's my nose," Lindbergh finally says. "You have my ears." They're checking each other out like strangers who have just discovered they're related. Which, in a way, they are. "We only have a couple more hours before I would never be able to talk to you again," Lindbergh says. "Is there anything you want to tell me? A story from when you were my age? Something you need to get off your chest?" Muhammad says nothing. Even now, facing death, he can't open up to his own son. The visit ends with nothing resolved, nothing explained. 6 p.m. Muhammad eats his last meal in solitude, chicken with red sauce and cakes. He's refused to publicize the details, maintaining control over this one small thing. He declines a spiritual advisor. The man who once was deeply religious wants no comfort from faith now. 8:55 p.m. Guards escort Muhammad to the execution chamber. He's wearing denim, walking with a slight falter in his step. Ironic, considering how his victims once walked in fear, weaving through parking lots to avoid his rifle scope. 9 p.m. Strapped to the gurney, the warden asks the question everyone wants answered. "Mr. Muhammad, do you have any last words?" Silence. No apology to the families. No explanation for the terror. No acknowledgement of the victims. Nothing. "He did not look at us, did not acknowledge us," the prison spokesman will later say. "He never uttered a single word." 9:01 p.m. The 3-drug cocktail begins. Sodium thiopental to render him unconscious, pancuronium bromide to stop his breathing, potassium chloride to stop his heart. Witnesses watch him take 7 deep breaths, each one slower than the last. 9:11 p.m. John Allen Muhammad is pronounced dead at exactly 9:11 p.m. One witness whispers, "Oh, the irony in that, he was pronounced dead at 9:11. Muhammad took his reasons to the grave. Why did he turn suburban parking lots into killing fields? Why did he target strangers? Was it really about getting his ex-wife back, as prosecutors claimed? We'll never know. Robert Alton Harris. Robert Alton Harris killed 2 16-year-old boys, John Maskey and Michael Baker, on July 5, 1978. He needed their car for a bank robbery. After shooting them, he calmly ate the hamburgers they'd left behind in their car. It was this detail, the casual cruelty of eating his victims' food, that haunted people most. Harris would become the first person executed in California in 25 years. April 20th, 1992, 12 p.m. Robert Alton Harris should die in 6 hours, but legal battles will extend his final day. The afternoon visits are emotional. His brother Randall, cousin Leon, attorney, and close friend arrive. Guards, unusually, allow brief hugs. "I love you, Robbie," Randall whispers. Harris seems calm, almost cheerful. He's been on death row for 14 years. He's ready, but the courts aren't done with him yet. 6 p.m. Harris is moved to the death watch cell, just 15 steps from San Quentin's gas chamber, the same chamber that hasn't been used in 25 years. The entire prison feels the weight of history about to be made. The warden checks on him. "How's everything going, Robert?" "Everything's fine, Warden." "How are you doing?" Then Harris adds something strange. "When I get where I'm going, I'll put in a good word for you." The warden doesn't know how to respond. Where does Harris think he's going? 7 p.m. The last meal arrives, and it's a feast. Bucket of KFC, 2 large pizzas, 6-pack of Pepsi, jelly beans, and 2 packs of Camel cigarettes. Harris shares it with his cousin Leon through the bars. They eat together one last time, trying to pretend this is normal. 11:20 p.m. The phone rings. A stay of execution. Harris's lawyer delivers the news. Good news, you got a stay. Bad news, it's only 4 hours. The courts are debating whether cyanide gas constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. Harris slumps on his mattress, exhausted. This emotional roller coaster is its own form of torture. April 21st, 1992, 2 a.m. The Supreme Court weighs in. The stay is lifted. Harris will die at dawn. 5:50 a.m. As the first light appears, Harris is escorted to the gas chamber. He's wearing blue jeans and a blue shirt, and surprisingly, he's chatty, almost cheerful. He enters the steel chamber, built in 1938, and sits in chair A. To the victims' families watching through the glass, his calmness looks like arrogance. 6 a.m. The heavy door seals with a submarine-like thud. Harris turns to the families and mouths 2 words, "I'm sorry." The sodium cyanide pellets drop into the sulfuric acid below his chair. The gas begins to rise. At first, nothing happens. Then his hands twitch. His chest heaves. His head snaps back, eyes rolling. 30 seconds later, his body strains against the straps, head jerking violently before finally slumping forward. 6:21 a.m. Warden Vasquez declares, Inmate B66883, Robert Alton Harris, is dead. His final written words, penned earlier and read by the warden, "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everybody dances with the Grim Reaper." The execution of Robert Alton Harris marked the end of California's 25-year moratorium on capital punishment. Outside San Quentin, protesters on both sides maintained vigils through the night. As news of his death spread, some wept while others quietly dispersed into the morning fog. These were the final 24 hours of some of America's most notorious killers. Each faced their end differently. While Ted Bundy died pleading for more time, Aileen Wuornos claimed she'd be back. In those final hours, as the clock counted down, these killers transformed from monsters back into mortal men and women, facing the same fate they had delivered to so many others. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a like. Let me know your thoughts on the death penalty below and what you would like to see next.